Zangia Academy.
Чадвараа хөгжүүл ирээдүгөө бүтээ.
Сайн байцгаана уу? Ахисан дунд буюу Apparent Mini шатны 3 дугаар хичээл болох нийлмэл өгүүлбэрүүд болон цаг зохицох ёсны тухай баттгал хичээл маань эхэлж байна. За ингээд хичээлдээ орцгоё. So a composite sentence. Composite sentences can be divided in three groups. Compound sentences, complex sentences, and compound complex sentences. Let's take a look on them in detail. So what is a compound sentence? A compound sentence has more than one part that can stand alone. So compound sentence has at least two or more independent clauses. In other words, it consists of simple sentences that can be used separately. And independent clauses are connected by coordinating conjunctions, conjunctive adverbs, or a semicolon. Okay, let's take a look on the example. We went to San Juan, and most of us danced all night. So there are two clauses. We went to San Juan, and most of us danced all night. In those, both of these clauses can be used as a separate sentence, right? So we can say we went to San Juan. If this was a separate sentence, we could have understood it. And also, and most of us danced all night. It can be used separately too. So a compound sentence has at least two or more independent clauses, and they are interconnected with conjunctions. So this one is a compound sentence. What about complex? Complex sentence at least has two parts. One independent clause and one dependent clause. So the part that cannot stand alone, in other words, dependent clause, it is linked to the rest of the sentence by subordinating conjunction. For example, since we wanted to have fun, we went to San Juan yesterday. So an independent clause is we went to San Juan yesterday. But why we went? Since we wanted to have fun. So the first clause, this one is dependent, because if we use this sentence separately as a full sentence, it is pretty hard to understand the meaning of the sentence, right? So that one is dependent clause, and this one is independent clause. So here it is written the part that cannot stand alone. So it cannot stand alone. What about complex compound? Complex compound sentence is a mixture of above mentioned too. So in a complex compound sentence, you have at least two independent clauses and one dependent clause. Let's take a look. Since we wanted to have fun, my boyfriend and I went to San Juan and we danced all night. So first one is dependent clause. It cannot be used alone, but following two sentences are independent sentences. They can be used alone, right? My boyfriend and I went to San Juan and we danced all night. Those can be understood separately. Those are two independent sentences with one dependent sentence. So this sentence is called complex compound sentence. In the sequence of tenses. Okay. There are several rules that guide the sequence of tenses, but the main rule states that the subordinate clause always follows the tense in the principal clause. So what is principal and what is subordinate clause? So we said that in a complex sentence there is an independent sentence and dependent. Those are called as principal clause and subordinate clause. Principal clause is an independent sentence, and the subordinate clause is the dependent sentence, the sentence that cannot be used alone. So in general, the tense of the subordinate clause has to be the same as the tense of the principal clause. This is the general rule, but of course there are some exceptions from this rule. For example, if the principal clause is written in the past tense, the subordinate clause has to be written in the past tense. For example, I found out that she was out of town. Both of them are written in the past simple tense. But there are certain exceptions from this rule. Exception number 1, when the principal clause is in the past, the subordinate clause can be used in the present tense if it is citing a universal truth. For example, water boils at 100 degrees, right? It's universal truth. The children were taught that honesty is the best policy. So we're taught, it's past simple. Honesty is, it's present simple, right? So this is exception number 1. What about exception number 2? When the word then is used in the sentence to introduce the subordinate clause, in this case, we can use any tense with the subordinate clause. So it doesn't matter what tense are used in the principal clause, right? What tense is used. In this case, you can use whatever tense makes sense for you. What about rule number 2? So if the tense used with the principal clause is in the present or future, the tense of the subordinate clause can be any tense based on your needs. For example, she's saying that she's alright. She says she is fine. Rule number 3. When we use the principal clause in the future tense, we do not use subordinating clause in the future tense and use the subordinating clause beginning with when, until, before, after. So in those cases, we just replace the subordinating conjunctions with appropriate pronouns. The subordinate clause is not written in future, but is written in present tense. For example, I will call you when dinner is ready. So you do not say, I will call you when the dinner will be ready. You just say, when dinner is ready. I shall wait until you return. So the principal clause in future tense, however, the subordinate clause in the present simple tense. Okay, rule number 4. When the subordinate clause is introduced with the conjunction that, we do 2 following steps. First, we use may in the subordinate clause if the principal clause is written in the present tense. And if the principal clause is written in the past tense, we use might in the subordinate clause. For example, we eat that we may live. She tried to live so that he might have a chance at life. So it depends on the tense of the principal clause whether we use may or might. And last rule, rule number 5. So when some phrases such as if only, if I wish that, what if, it is time are used, the clauses that follow are always in the past tense. So you are talking about something impossible, something that you sometimes regret or dream of. Example, I wish I could eat another ice cream. So this sentence is governed by the rule number 5. So this is the end of our lesson. Thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed your class. Bye bye.